The Voice of Converting, the podcast for converting pros. Welcome to The Voice of Converting. Today is our first English-speaking episode of this podcast that has been running for over 9 months now already, and I'm very happy about today's guest, Sara Alexander from BOBST. Welcome to the show, Sara.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks for having me here. Thanks for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. So, Sara, many people in the industry know you, but maybe not everyone from our listeners. So it's time for a short introduction here at the beginning. You are working for BOBST, but not in Switzerland. You're working in Italy. And maybe you can tell us initially how you ended up there and what's your background.
Okay. Yeah, my background is languages. I studied French and Spanish, but then really wanted to learn Italian. So took myself there. The only way to learn it was to live in the country. And I did that back in 1999.
And I guess you enjoy Italy a lot. It's a great place to live.
It is a good place. I'd be lying if I said anything differently. It's a good place to be.
Okay, maybe you can also, just for reference, what is BOBST's main focus on the Italian branch?
Okay, yes. So I first of all, I joined BOBST in 2018. I've been in the industry since 2001, so over 23 years in the flexible packaging industry. BOBST has four main industries: flexible packaging, folding carton, corrugated board, and labels. And I am focused on flexible packaging. So I'm the Marcom manager for flexible packaging. And in San Giorgio, where I'm based, the main technologies are rotogravure printing, coating, and laminating.
Okay, so basically that's the thing we are talking about the most in our magazines. It's the converting field for BOBST. So let's talk about the market trends that you're currently observing. What is it that BOBST is currently observing on the market, and how are you reacting to it?
Okay, I think the trends are, there are many, many over there. We hear so many different words right now. So let's try and group them together. We can perhaps put the umbrella of innovation, which would include things like automation, digitalisation, and the influence of AI, for example. And then there's the hottest one, sustainability. So people globally want to live and work in a more sustainable way, but we also want to make our packaging materials more sustainable. So we want new materials, new structures, new applications. And at the same time, we want to get rid of the excess. So there's a trend in down gauging to get rid of the extra packaging, whether it be the bags or the packaging or the boxes. And then maybe the third, let's say, macro trend could be around data. So data collection, management, and connectivity, which then links back into innovation and AI.
So I guess we experienced all of this at the BOBST booth at drupa,
Exactly.
because frankly, there were fewer machines than in previous years, but a lot more focus on digital products, automation, as you said, and also highlighting all these service aspects with live streams and all of that. Maybe you can also talk about what drupa was like for you this year.
Yeah, drupa was fun. It was a strong position on behalf of Jean-Pascal Bobst that's saying that Bobst will become a digital company. And for those who visited the booth, the central point, the focus point was BOBST Connect, which is our cloud-based platform. It's all about managing the data and using the data to improve the performance and to provide reporting, for example, in real time. But the booth was divided into the four industries that I mentioned at the beginning, but also touched on the four elements of our vision. So automation, digitalization, sustainability, and connectivity. Mainly looking at how to answer the pain points of the customer. Just an example of one, we see whatever the industry is, the lack of skilled workforce or the difficulty in retaining workforce. So when we can bring the know-how from the individual to the equipment, that makes life a lot easier.
So up next, we are going to dive deeper into the sustainability topic. And sustainability is always, this buzzword that everybody loves to use. And we are sustainable, yeah, but what does it mean? So how do we make sustainability more concrete? And also, how is BOBST's strategy in this field? And how far are we here?
Okay, yeah, you're right. Look, it's a buzzword. It's really heavily used. So some people are almost getting fed up of it. So let's try and understand where it all began. So there's a global demand to make packaging more sustainable. This is stronger, or it's felt more in some parts of the world rather than others. But then we have the activists who are really making plastic look like the bad guy. Okay.
Mhm.
We're seeing also a change in mindset and consciousness. So we, the consumers, because we're all consumers, we'd like to make our planet a better place now and for the future. The need for this became so strong and apparent. And if you can remember, a few years ago, back in 2019, the leading brands, converters, and the key market players, they brought out their pledges and the commitments to make their packaging more sustainable within a very short period of time. Soon after that, we had the new packaging regulations started to come in. So we're in Europe. Let's look at the PPWR, the Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation. Then we have the plastic tax in Spain and the UK, EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility. So these actions started to take place, and this really shifted sustainability from the buzzword to something more concrete. And I still think, however, that there's a lot of uncertainty hanging around the word. So it's on the tip of everyone's tongue. Sometimes it's annoying. We don't know exactly how things will change or how we are going to be allowed to change the things and if we will be able to uniform this globally. But what we do know is the flexible packaging world that we have known and been comfortable with for so many years will evolve and will change.
And I guess this is a change that will also be constant. I mean, it won't stop at some point. You still have to be flexible, and you have to react quickly at all times. Is that right?
You do. We see that, I think, in our R&D area, where the different materials that we're receiving to trial and test, they're so different amongst themselves that we have to be reactive and we have to be flexible.
One of the big topics in the sustainability debate in flexible packaging is certainly design for recycling. So, what is Bob's advice here, and yeah, what is your experience and standpoint in this regard?
Yeah, so we're not perhaps comparable to what happens in a brand owner or at a converters, but we have our own, let's say, checklists.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're using the design for recyclability guidelines in our R&D processes, because you may have seen at the trade shows or on different platforms that we are showing our applications, the One Barrier family, for example, and we've created these together with partners. We're doing this to make sure that the equipment, that the new materials are machinable. The big questions that the converters have is about machinability. So we want to be able to support our market. So we need to have our own design for recyclability checklist out there. The first point would be to make sure we follow the guidelines and the legislations, because we all have to tick that box. The second thing is, even if we change the packaging structures, the new ones have a job to do. We mustn't forget that the job of the packaging is to protect the content. So we need to make sure we bring barrier, adhesion, bond strength, coefficient of friction, machinability, process, all of these to the new materials. The third point, which is really important, and it's a bit of a dangerous trap, is to avoid greenwashing.
Mhm.
Because we mentioned sustainability as a buzzword, everyone's talking about it. It's there constantly. So we're trying to really consciously make sure that whatever we bring to the market, or we show our partners, is then authorized by third parties. That it is checked out by authorized third parties, so they can prove the recyclability of what we're showing. So it's not just you don't take our word for it. There's a certification to say this. And then we take it one step further, and we want to check the environmental impact. So we're carrying out specific LCAs, the life cycle assessments.
Mhm.
The fifth step is the most challenging. The fifth step is cost, because even if we ticked all of the other boxes and we found a perfect solution, but it cost 10 times more, it wouldn't be viable. And then all of this has to come together with the mental shift. So companies along the entire value chain need to hold hands together and make that step into the future. Otherwise, alone, no one will do it. And we don't have any choice. That's the direction of the market.
Definitely. So let's take a look into the R&D facilities. What can we see in terms of change there, and also in terms of new materials that are coming?
So I'll start with the last question on new materials. We talked about the pledges, that was in 2019. But before that, we started to notice as soon as 2016 the first requests when they were shifting from Alox PET to monomaterial PE based solutions. The pledges in 2019 peaked and intensified the new materials that we were being proposed with. So, for example, BOPE, monomaterials, either PE or BOPP. MDOPE is a big one, but of course, paper. The main trend to all of these is to bring barrier and then sealability because the packages need to seal.
Mhm.
And these new materials typically have very little or no inherent barrier levels at all. So then the next thing, once we have barrier, everything that we see on a supermarket shelf is printed. Nothing is blank. So then we had to take it to the printing machines, testing on the different technologies. We even tried surface print instead of reverse print. The market trend is for reverse, but if you think about de-inking, we're trying surface print to see how that works. And then more recently, I mentioned as well down gauging to get rid of the thicker, to go thinner and thinner. So one of the latest tests, it was a week before drupa. It was really, really recent. We tested an 18 micron MDOPE on our gravure machine at high speed in 1 ECG technology with excellent results. So it's constant, new materials, new technologies, all of our equipment are involved. And that's the material. I think you asked about the facilities as well.
Yes.
So the facilities, that has to be the undisputed key to everything. I tend to call it a melting pot because we're bringing together the key industry players. So our facilities mainly in San Giorgio, where I'm based in the north of Italy, or in Manchester in the UK, are involved in bringing together partners, whether they are suppliers of materials or converters or brand owners. Now, brand owners and partners, the suppliers of materials, I suppose that's easier to understand because they don't have the equipment and they need us for the equipment. The converters do have the equipment, but because the R&D is such a long journey, they cannot justify closing down the machines for production and dedicating them to R&D. That's why I call it a melting pot. And last year, for example, between the two facilities, we managed over 1,400 different barrier-related trials in our competence
Wow.
centers. Yeah.
Just to get an impression, how many machines are available there?
So in Manchester, we have a vacuum metallizer,
Mhm.
which is available for the metallization aspect. And in San Giorgio, we have Leonardo, which is the huge pilot line for coating. We have also the Expert Lam 900, which is a flexible machine which does both laminating and coating. And
Mhm.
then we have the small solventless machine for solventless lamination. That's just on the converting side. Printing, we have a Rotogravure Master 6003, which does the 1 ECG test that I mentioned before, for example.
Yeah, paper is a huge topic, and I think everybody has a strong opinion on this. This it's like a conflict between paper and film, and when to use which one of these materials. But is paper really happening, and is paper a viable future packaging solution to replace multi-layer packaging?
Yeah, it's the question that I get asked a lot, and it depends on who you speak to. You feel the vibes at the trade shows of those who are paper producers and those come from the resin or the polymer people. They kind of have their really strong positions on this. Paper is a hot topic because the consumer understands paper. Paper has been around for years and it has been recycled for years. Most countries have the recycling streams in place. That makes it easier. Some packaging formats are challenging. So paper will struggle with these. So I would expect as the paper solutions get better, the packaging machinery processing solutions downstream will also improve to help this transition. Paper is growing, it's a fact. We see this reflected in our own tests. Out of those 1,400 trials that I mentioned, a large portion and a growing portion was on paper solutions. In terms of whether it's viable, let's say that in our findings, so for the one barrier family, the fiber cycle solution, clearly the fiber based, When we started out, we set ourselves some targets and we actually exceeded these targeted performances. So we looked at barrier to oxygen, the OTR, and to water vapor, WVTR, and we reached less than 1, which in simple terms is the equivalent of metallized PET.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean that BOBST is only looking at paper. We're exploring a multitude of materials on the field. And we are developing in many, many streams, both paper and polymer based, because we strongly believe that will be a place for both of them in the future packaging solutions.
And how does BOBST adapt its equipment to these new materials that are coming up?
I think it's a question of tradition, if I may, because we're in an extremely privileged position. We've been exposed to all these new materials, one from our own research and development, but secondly from the people coming to the competence centres saying, "Can you help me to develop my own solution?" So on one side, when we promote our materials, you see the names of the partners and logos on the back. In the background, the number of R&D tests that are going on with other partners under NDA is a multitude, and that's where we get a lot of experience on the different solutions. Over time, we're a company built upon acquisitions, so we've been learning from each other. Laminating's learning from coating from rotogravure, the web handling, the drying, and all of that, and that's applied in the R&D. When we learn from one product, we apply it to the equipment and we improve. So this very steep learning curve that we've had in the R&D facilities has allowed us not only to improve the process know-how, but to adapt equipment both on hardware and software to manage these new materials, which, to be honest, if you think of paper, it's porous, it's hygroscopic, and it's a different behavior than MDOPE, which is thermosensitive. So we have to be flexible and we have to find a way to respond to all these challenges that are being thrown at us.
There are certainly other future trends that you are currently noticing. Maybe you can share some insights into those as well.
Yeah, I think that the hidden mega trend could be automation. It's slightly undershadowed. Sustainability is given the limelight, but automation is key to extremely important developments that are going on. I think if we look at the mega trends this year that have been under the spotlight, you mentioned them at the beginning of the podcast. So it is sustainability and digitalisation, but automation and connectivity are still ongoing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So data is key to effective automation. So automation needs machine and process data. We need to capture it, analyze it, and get it out there in real time.
I guess it's a philosophical question, but when does big data become AI? I mean, AI is the next thing that I would like to ask about.
AI is all. When does it come AI? I don't know. I think it's already intertwined one with the other, and there's no cut-off time with that. And there are already solutions out there, so we are already using AI in our solutions. But it's so fast. It's going to be faster than we think. I don't think we know how fast it will be, but an example of one of the recent developments in BOBST is the intelligent metallizing assistant. And that was using AI to be able to develop the new software, which is on our vacuum metallizing equipment. It's a vision system which it really helps to improve the process and reduce waste, but also will allow in real time the maintenance to take part at a distance. Remote maintenance will be supported by this.
So finally, one last outlook question for this podcast would be, the flexible packaging market is certainly on the move. It's transforming quickly. Where do you see it going? What are you expecting for the next few years? And what are the challenges that you may also see on the horizon?
Okay, in terms of market and volumes, I think we all know and we all feel that we're currently living a dip. There's a slight lull. This was forecast. We're not surprised by this. It's still part of the post-pandemic effects. The market has slowed down and we all hear the word destocking. Mm-hmm. The expectations are for volumes to start to pick up in 2025, maybe reaching initially pre-COVID levels. But having said that, the midterm outlook, let's say to 2030, is for an increase in growth in flexible packaging. So it's overall positive. And that's in terms of volumes. In terms of substance, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have reached a pivotal moment, and it's going to be the era for change. Materials will change, machinery will change, methodology will change. So the process will adapt. It will become more streamlined, more automation, more AI. We mentioned that just now, moving the know-how to the machines. So what is inside the flexible packaging space will change. We don't have full visibility of what it will look like. We don't have this crystal ball, but we know what is driving the change, and that's related to sustainability and legislation. So from a personal standpoint, I think, yes, we are seeing many challenges, but they also are many opportunities out there. And to be fair, I think you know as much as I do, it's quite an interesting and dynamic space to be in right now.
Mhm. Yeah, certainly. Sara, this was absolutely fascinating. I could feel how deeply involved you are in these topics. And also, it must be an exciting time to be working at BOBST because all of these changes, you can accompany them. So thank you very much for these insights. We really appreciate it.
Thanks to you, Martin. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and this is the end of our current episode of The Voice of Converting. Thank you to all listeners, and we will be back very soon with the next episode. So thank you for listening. The Voice of Converting podcast is a product of M2N Media. To learn more, check out our website proflexconvert.com.